is something enduring about this phone camera hybrid design. Brands come back to it again and again, and sometimes they fail, and sometimes they probably still fail. But regardless, I'm a camera nerd, you're presumably a camera nerd, and I think these devices are quite interesting. I've got an alarming collection of failed strange cameras. Let me show you some of my favourites. They come in two categories. We have the phone camera Frankenstein's baby sort of thing, where there's literally a camera attached into it, or we have devices that need a phone in order to function. Let's take a look at probably my favourite, the Lumix CM1. I would consider this quite an overlooked device because when people think about phone camera hybrids, you would usually think about Samsung, and they did do it first. However, the Lumix iteration, the CM1, is really interesting. It has a Leica branded lens that's very fast and very high quality. It shoots RAW, and it's actually the same sensor that's in the Lumix LX10/LX15, which I took to Costa Rica earlier this year. It's a damn good, gorgeous little camera, and the CM1 is basically a fixed lens version of that stuck to an Android device. On my LX15/LX10 video, I do get quite a few negative comments. It got a little bit bigger than my usual videos. I didn't realise how much of a bargain I got with that compact camera, and it's quite tough to find it at the price that I got it for. Well, now I can reply, you can buy a CM1 for like 100 quid. So if you can't find an LX10 or an LX15 and would like to pull your hair out whilst dealing with Android, the CM1 might be a viable option. No, it's not. It's not. It's really not. As nice as the camera is, the Android version I think is Android 5, so very, very old. At the time, this would have been revolutionary. This was going against grainy, nasty little phone camera phones, and having a very nice 1-inch sensor inside your camera phone would have been super cool. However, now, because the Android experience is a little bit poo, it negates the plus points of having a hybrid device where you could take a photo and then share it immediately online, edit it, and off we go. On the plus side, the actual camera experience of this is pretty good. You have a camera button here, so you can automatically get into the camera app, and it's a very similar looking outlay compared to like a normal Lumix camera. It's very well thought out and pretty easy to navigate, and you can use the volume rockers for different functions like exposure compensation and things. It was great and of its time. Would I recommend it today? Possibly not. Next, the Olympus Air. I don't know if you can see that. It's just a Micro Four Thirds camera stuck in a little tube. It's so diddy and cute. This is one of those devices where you can use an app with it in order to make it work, but the reason that I really quite like the Olympus Air, even now, is you can use it standalone. You have a shutter button built in, and there is a micro SD slot, so you can put your photographs straight into this device without sending them to the phone. And, you know, you can pew, pew, pew away. You can't figure out what it's focusing on, but it does have autofocus. I think that might be a fun experiment at some point. In terms of the hardware, it's absolutely gorgeous and premium and lovely. It came out in 2015, and yet again, it's overlooked because it's not the first brand that did this. The first brand that did this was Sony, and I had one back in the day. They had the QX100, which had a teeny tiny sensor, but 10 times optical zoom. And it was super cool. I absolutely loved it. I loved that you could sort of connect to it, leave it across the room and take photographs remotely. There's loads of cool things you could do with it. Then they had the QX10, which had an APS-C sensor in. I remember going into the camera shop in my local town and I'd just like paw at the glass because I really wanted one and couldn't afford one. So yeah, people have tried numerous times. Have they failed? Quite possibly. And if you'd like to see me running around town blind with the Olympus Air, let me know in the comments. Back to the phone Frankensteins. The Yongnuo YN455. I recently reviewed this, and this is the most recent device, second most recent device on this list. It came out in 2021. So positively brand new, and it has Android 10 built in. Now this is almost the antithesis of this camera because the Android experience is pretty nice. You can edit Lightroom on here, you can connect it to your Instagram, you can play games, whatever you want, but the camera that this is attached to is a little bit pants. It is a micro four thirds sensor, and it is a 20 megapixel micro four thirds sensor at that. So it's not the hardware that's the problem. It's just, there's a lot of rolling shutter. The autofocus is quite bad. And yeah, it's a massive, massive device. I mean, the hardware is gorgeous. This huge screen is really, really nice, but it is huge. I do have a full review of this, which I'll link in the description for you to watch next if you fancy. What about the DxO1? Now this is a strange little camera and I nearly threw it on the floor. It's absolutely minuscule, and it's a camera, again, that's designed to be used with your phone, but you can use it standalone, which is how I use it. It has the silliest little dot matrix screen on the back, which is horrific to compose with, and because it's an awkward shape, I do often find my finger in the frame. But it has a trick up its sleeve. Because it's made by DxO, who make the noise reduction software, it does shoot something called super RAW, and the low light RAW files you can get out of this camera are absolutely incredible, particularly given the sensor size. So it's a very interesting and innovative device, and I'm really sad that we didn't see more of them because super RAW is really blooming cool. I use this quite often for a little portable time-lapse device. You can just sort of set it up going with the app and off you go. Let me just quickly tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Storyblocks. Storyblocks is an ideal place if you create video. There are over 1 million pieces of stock footage in 4K and HD, royalty-free music, and even sound effects as well. And the best thing about it, which is why I really like it, is it's one set subscription. It's unlimited for one set price, so you don't find a piece of footage that you like and then it's like, oh, 100 quid or whatever. It's all included in the same price. It's super handy. For example, when I went to the Faroe Islands, I did have my own drone with me and I did use my own drone footage. But there was one day where I was at this lake and it was just too blooming windy to get the drone in the air. So I integrated some drone footage along with my own footage, and I think it worked really well. So to get started with unlimited stock media, head to this URL or click the link in the description and get started. Let's get back to the nerdiness. Now, depending on what I've titled this video, don't take offence, Alice Camera, I don't think this is a failed project just yet, but only because it's barely blooming begun. I originally reviewed this camera 11 months ago, and there were some things missing, like autofocus and 4K video and the Android app, and I use Android, so It is a micro four thirds sensor, and it's got the 12 megapixel micro four thirds sensor that you would find in the GH5S. GX5S? GH5-2? GH5S. So that means in theory, you know, you've got 12 megapixels, it should be really good in low light. It's a damn good sensor. It will connect to an iPhone, for example, and hopefully an Android at some point. You use the Alice Camera app, but the whole project has been riddled with delays. Lots of delays. Like, I think this started production maybe in 2020, and I don't know how many people have them yet. I made my review 11 months ago. I met the CEO of the company, and past Emily was just really blooming excited, to be honest. You know, having a new micro four thirds camera to geek out about is obviously very exciting to me. Watch the video after this if you'd like to learn more about Alice Camera, but just view it in the sort of frame of past Emily thought all of these updates were imminent, and I'm really sad that a year later we are still waiting. I wish the hardware was a little bit smaller, and I wish that you could use it standalone. You know, without the phone on it, it's quite an interesting form factor, but then when you do stick the phone on it, it starts to get a little bit chunky. I will do an update video if Alice Camera smash it out of the park, but as it stands, who knows, we're still in a little bit of limbo. I don't have this camera yet, but it's due in the next few weeks, hopefully, and that's the Switch Lens project. This is a Kickstarter that I've backed. I was a very early backer. I was like, yeah, that looks cool, sign me the heck up. And in many ways, it looks quite similar to Alice Camera, except I think the hardware of the Switch camera looks more modern and small and pretty good. I think that there is a micro four thirds version and a smaller censored version, and I think I've got the micro four thirds version on the way. There is no autofocus on that either, but it does look very interesting, and I'll give that a full review once I have it. I have a soft spot for them all, even though they are all objectively flawed. I am a camera nerd and a weirdo though. I think the closest to a complete product is probably the DxO1 and the Lumix CM1. Like if that came out now with newer Android, I would buy it and use it every single day. I do think these products are a little bit niche and a little bit weird and a little bit flawed. Check out my dedicated review for the Yongnuo and also for DxO1 and also Alice Camera. I'll link them all in the description. And thank you very much for watching.